Please note that you're able to provide public comment. Public comment, please register by sending an email to ocpc@seattle.gov with public comment in the subject line. We will also allow community members attending by phone to register for public comment by voice. For those wishing to do so at the beginning of the public comment period, when prompted, please unmute yourself and say your name to register. Speakers must be registered in order to be recognized by the chair. If you are unable to attend the remote meeting, please submit written comments again to the Community Police Commission at ocpc@seattle.gov. The Seattle Community Police Commission acknowledges that we are on the traditional land of the Coast Salish people, including the Muckleshoot, Suquamish, and Duwamish people, past and present. With humility, we recognize how much we benefit from living on their land and water. The Seattle Community Police Commission honors and lifts up these tribes. We hope that this acknowledgement will encourage authentic relationships with urban Native people and all Coast Salish tribes.
Thank you. Okay, we'll do attendance now. Asha Mohammed. Let's see. Reverend Hunter.
Present.
Thank you. Laron Baker.
Present.
Suzette Dickerson.
Present.
Douglas Wagoner.
Present.
Prachi Dave.
Present.
Aaron Goodman is here. Dr. Pinto.
Present.
Austin Field. I believe we had an email prior to the last meeting that he was not going to be here for the next two meetings, so it's an excused absence.
Yes, it is.
Present.
Catherine Seibel. Saw you. Catherine is present. I see.
Present. I'm here.
Thank you. Joseph Saya.
Present.
Thank you. Esther Lucero. I do not see. Legea is on leave. Officer Mullins.
Present.
Alina, we know, is not going to be here. Scott Bachler's on leave. Colleen Echohawk. Let's see. Tasha Johnson.
Here.
Erica Newman. I believe I saw you. Erica is
Present.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the agenda. It's now time for public comment. Laron?
Good morning, everyone. We are now in our public comment section. As was stated earlier, you can register by sending an email to ocpc@seattle.gov with public comment in the subject line. Speakers must be registered in order to be recognized for public comment. If you've called into this via telephone, you will be unable to unmute and register for public comment. Each commenter will have 2 minutes, and I believe that we currently have just 2 people signed up for public comment. Is that correct, Jesse?
Yes.
Great. If you can put the timer up, we will start with Valerie Schloret. Valerie?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, good morning. On August 9th, the South Seattle Emerald published an article about a whistleblower complaint filed with the city regarding the office of the Inspector General. The article is headlined, OIG Auditor Resigns, claims OIG puts OPA allegiances over police accountability. The whistleblower resigned over concerns that the Inspector General and Deputy Inspector General of the OIG have quashed criticism of flawed OPA investigations. The complaint highlights patterns of concealing the truth and avoiding public disclosure request requirements. It also alleges the OPA obtained and published medical information without a patient's consent. That would be illegal. Everyone concerned with police accountability in Seattle should be aware of the complaint filed with the city and the allegations revealed by the Emerald's article, So I'm asking all of you in the CPC to read the article and include in the minutes of your next meeting that you are aware of this matter. We should not ignore this reporting because it was published in a community newspaper. I was disappointed that Judge Robart did not mention the complaint in last week's status conference. I think it would have been quite a different status conference if he had. I don't think he knew about it. So I also request that the CPC use its amicus status with the court to notify the judge of the Emerald article and the whistleblower complaint. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Valerie. We really appreciate your comments. The next is Howard Gale. Dr. Gale. Great, thank you so much, Dr. Gale. Next is department updates, and I will turn that. Oh, I'm actually sorry. Is there anyone who has called in telephonically who wishes to provide public comment?
We didn't approve the agenda.
If so, I believe all people who've called in by phone have been unmuted. There is a number ending in 0325.
I believe that's Valerie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, it seems like there are no other public comments, and so we'll move on to department updates. I will turn that over to Erin.
We didn't do the agenda, did we? Did we approve the agenda
You
for
are
today?
correct. We did not.
Okay, no, we did not.
Thank you.
That would be my error. So let's
Okay.
back up and review the agenda for today, and we will, if anyone would like to make a motion.
I'd like the motion to amend. I didn't see anything on there about the last time on at the meeting. Staff wanted to be part of the discussion today, and it's no place on the agenda where staff could be part of the discussion today. And also, I wanted to add down the information so we can add on the new business about the annual report.
Okay, so new business, you'd like to add under new business annual report. And what section would you like staff? Because we have a couple of conversations that came out of last week's conversation on here that there's nothing that prohibits staff. So are you speaking specifically about work group process or?
Well, I mean,
engagement, which section?
Well, I mean, it came up about doing the work groups when we had a discussion about work groups, and then we said we would continue that discussion today. And then staff said they wanted to be part of that discussion. So I don't see that their name is there for to be part of the discussion.
Oh, Reverend Walden, you're correct. So staff did want to be part of it, and Nia is actually co-presenting with us on the work group. presentation, and the conversation is open to all of us. So I'm not, I would assume that that addresses your concerns.
I don't know. I mean, I'll hear from staff and see if it does. I don't know because because Charlene absolutely said before the meeting and that they wanted to be part of the discussion, and I wrote that down, and so I'm just asking if that and that might satisfy staff, and it might not. So I don't know. So thanks.
Well,
So,
yeah, and we appreciate you, really advocating for the staff, but it is already currently built into the agenda. So if we get to a point and it doesn't seem like it's effectively done, you can raise it at that point, but I'm not sure that
okay.
it requires an amendment because it's built in.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I just wanted to make sure this on there or someplace else. That's all, and that's all within Robert rules, right? It's all within Robert's rules, and we're going to add the annual report on the new business. Thank you.
All right, so are you making a motion then to approve the agenda with the addition of the annual report under new business?
That's correct.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we've approved the agenda. Next is the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the August 4th meeting that were sent out with your meeting materials? Do we have any edits, questions?
I have just one question. I mean, in the past, if a person has missed more than 3 meetings, that was something that should be done. And I don't know if that's still going on right now because we've had few commissioners that's missed more than 3 minutes meetings, and you didn't say that they were on leave or nothing like that. So we have some that hasn't been here for a while, and that was supposed to be something that happened if people miss more than 3 meetings consecutively.
Yes, and that is definitely something that was in the bylaws, that we would reach out to them and have a conversation. I believe that process is happening. However, we can take that, up with at the governance committee and reaching out what we've heard. So if that works. Any other additional questions or comments on the minutes? Anyone make a motion to approve?
I move that the minutes be approved as distributed.
A second?
I'll second.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the minutes from the August 4th meeting are approved. Now we move on to department updates. I believe we heard from Newell. I'm just checking to make sure that I have updates from Newell. On Monday, and these are direct reading from his words. On Monday, the City Council approved the less lethal weapons bill. Here are the next steps. First, SPD will draft policy revisions within 60 days, provided by Section 4 of the bill. Second, Department of Justice and the Monitor would review the policy revisions. This is when their formal review under the consent decree takes place. Third, the court will review the policy revisions also required by the consent decree. And fourth, if the court approves the policy revisions, then the revised policies and the substantive provisions of the bill will take effect, provided by Section 5 of the bill. The next meeting of the Public Safety and Human Services Committee is scheduled for September 14th. Do we have an update from the mayor's office? I am looking. I do not believe I see one. Okay. Monitoring team, do we have an update?
Good morning. Since the last CPC meeting on August 4th, The monitoring team has been in attendance at an OIG SER planning meeting focusing on wave 3 of that process. We attended, or some of us attended, the Accountability Partners Focus Group for the Community Police Commission, the Connected Realities. My personal comment on that is that I was very impressed with the process and the two people, Ilani and Gigi, who convened it. We attended a SPD command staff meeting. We, of course, were at the status conference with Judge Robart. We have had one monitor team meeting since then in which we discussed methodology, data to be generated by SPD and DOJ, the status conference, and various other issues. We have attended a meeting with DOJ, again, to discuss data on use of force to be scrutinized by SPD and DOJ, and with the primary focus on the methodology. We also have had a methodology discussion on data with SPD. That concludes our activities since the last meeting of the CPC.
Thank you so much for the update, Ron. Christina, do we have an update from DOJ?
Yeah, good morning. I don't have much to add to Ron's recap. Much of that overlaps with ours. We're continuing to work on things called for in the monitoring plan, but I just wanted to also say that I know the judge's remarks in the hearing may have felt unwelcome to the CPC, and I just wanted to clarify that that is in no way a reflection of our position of the value of the CPC in this process, which is huge. And if there's a way that we can be of help in raising your voice or addressing the concerns that you have in this process, I'm here to participate in that, and please contact me.
Thank you so much, Christina.
Can I ask you a question, Christina?
Sure.
Yeah, the judge's comments kind of still left out there his order that he ordered the city to do, and ordered the city to work with the partners to come up with the methodology. So that order is still out there. So I guess that'll just still continue to hang out there then, because he made it clear that we were actually, under the city under the city ordinance now. But he ordered that the parties to work together. And I think in early spring or late midsummer of 2019. And I think that was part of what we might have was trying to capture, but maybe did not execute that very well. So just wanted to let you know, because that's still out there. Is that correct?
Yeah, Reverend Walden, thank you. I definitely understood what the CPC's position was and what you were looking to have the court do, and the concern around feeling like there hadn't been complete compliance with the court's order in 2019 around coming up with a plan for accountability. So I definitely know what you're referencing. I can't speak for the judge or the monitoring team. I think for DOJ's perspective, the monitoring plan itself is what was intended to be that plan. And it lays out in the areas of discipline and accountability what the actions are intended to be for the year 2021. And I think what that plan reflects, and maybe what the judge's remarks indicate, is that it is not really a process where the consent decree parties or the court can necessarily lead that process because of collective bargaining and the rules around collective bargaining and local laws. It really has to be an area where the city is driving those issues forward, and the court and the monitor and DOJ are in the position to review those actions and review them through the prism of the consent decree, and make sure they're not doing anything to undermine the consent decree. So I know that's frustrating from the perspective of people who really want to see those issues move forward. But I think that the monitoring plan and perhaps the remarks of the judge are indicative of the fact that we kind of have to be in a following role on those issues.
And I
And
will
so,
say,
so he
just
wants
to,
to, go ahead,
just
I'm
to,
sorry.
sorry, address this. We had a full agenda today, so we, based off of what commissioners wanted to talk about at the last, and so we don't have an executive session today where our attorneys debrief us about the hearing and advise us about, you know, what next steps are. But I think these are really good questions to put to the CPC's attorney so that we can get legal advice that's really specific to our interests and their advice. And so that is planned on happening, hopefully at the next meeting. We just weren't able to do it today.
Well, I mean, my question was about really with the DOJ, and they would not be in their consent. They would not be in the executive session. My question was around the DOJ. I knew that they did not agree with the judge when he said that this commission was out of compliance. That the city was out of compliance on accountability section, and we know that the DOJ did not agree with that. So my question was directly to Christina. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
OIG, do we have an update from you today?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So one is thanks for all the tireless work you all do. My update is pretty brief. One thing I would note is that Inspector General Judge is going to be out for an extended period of about 6 weeks. So immediately in the next couple of weeks, largely unavailable, and then starting to phase back in. And I think most of you are aware of that, but wanted to let you know of that. So I'll be standing in for a while. And then on the work front, Ron Ward mentioned the Wave 3 work that is commencing. What staff are finding as they look into it is that it's a very different thing than the substance of the first protests that were covered in the first report. And so we're still trying to get a handle around what that means in terms of there's just less police information and data just due to the nature of the activities. And so what we're focusing on right now is Wave 2. As you all know, brief recap, it was divided into 5 major waves of activity. So our priority push right now on the staff side is to finish out with the panel on the Wave 2 report. And then in the meantime, be taking a look at what can be done with Wave 3, and it may require a slightly different approach. So that's still being settled, but really appreciate all the partnership on those efforts. And so that's what I have today. Thank you.
Thank you. OPA, do we have an update from you today? I'm looking, I don't see. I do not see that we've been joined by anyone from OPA today. So that concludes our department updates. And now we move to CPC updates.
Great, thank you. So our co-chair updates, we have a packed agenda today, so we're gonna keep some of this fairly limited. The work groups have been moving on. The status conference occurred last week. As I said previously, we will have a debrief from our attorneys on what that may or may not mean for the CPC going forward and receive their legal advice that's specific to our particular interests. And I think that's probably most of the updates. We have, a lot of material to discuss today that is very intertwined with the co-chair's work. So I think we can leave it at that. I do want to go next to new CPC business. It seems that Reverend Walden, did you want to discuss the annual report? Did you have a particular question? You're muted.
Yes, thank you. We can do that now. In the past annual report, we would have seen the draft by now. I mean, because the staff should have been working on it, and all drafts come to us. I mean, the full commission, and so I just want to learn about the timeline on that, and when will we get, when we get to see, when will the staff get to present the annual report draft that they've been working on or should be working on?
Yes, so the staff has been working on the annual report, I think, for the last 2 or 3 months. For a number of reasons, we've had to do, pretty significant rewrites. In part
why?
because the first draft really didn't focus on the last year. So the staff has a really strong draft. It actually would have been presented today at this meeting, but because of the urgency with some of the conversations that were pushed forward, it has been pushed back to, I think, the next meeting that's coming up. So you'll see a draft and be able to provide all of the comments and inputs and thoughts. The commission will be able to do that, and the staff will be able to present on it. So that's sort of where it's been moving along. Yeah, it's been moving along. The staff has been working really hard on it.
Well, they usually move along in the commission meeting is what I'm just trying to say. I want to put that out there so new commissioners would know that the work usually moves along with us, not come, you know, I mean, because we help critique it, and that's how the work usually move along. And so if it's moving along, it hasn't come to us yet. So just I want to let new commissioners know things. That's all. Thank you for the update.
Yeah, and thank you, Reverend Walden, for bringing the historical information. I think until there's a draft that is whole, it doesn't make any sense to bring it to the commission if there are
But that's your opinion, though. That's your opinion.
The draft did not include half of the work groups that existed in 2020, and so
we focused on work from 2021 and not 2020. So now that we have one that is focused on 2020, or it's a very common challenge when writing an annual report. You want to talk about all the things you've just accomplished, but we'll actually have to save all of the stuff we've done in 2021 for the 2021.
Well, most of us know that. See, most of us know that. The work needs to just come out. That's all, and then we can fix it. And now the commissioners know that it's going to be 2020. It's last year's work, not this year's work. We haven't done a lot of work this year, so how can we write anything for this year?
Well, actually, the staff has been really active this year. The staff.
Well, I'm talking about with the commissioners. The commissioner has to be involved with the work. Okay, so that's what I meant. The commissioners have not been involved with much work on 2020. On 2021, the commissioners have not been involved with a lot of work. So that it has to include the commission. The commissioner's work has to be part of that. So I'm done with that piece. So anyway, if I don't know if anybody else wants.
Just trying to get a draft that is actually reflective of 2020 to get that.
I was here in 2020. I know I was here in 2020. I was a co-chair. So I know about the work in 2020. Okay, so and so other people who was here in 2020 and know about the work and know what happened. So
yes,
give these people an opportunity. Okay.
And we're writing obviously a great tribute to you in the.
I don't need a great tribute. I want the work to flow. I don't need a tribute. I get them all the time in Seattle. I had one yesterday. Good. Okay. Thank you. I'm done with that. I just wanted to make sure we could talk about it. And it comes to confirm
that the plan was to bring the annual report to this meeting, but because we had so many pressing issues raised by commissioners, we moved it to the next CPC meeting. And so the commissioners and the public should be able to see a draft before the next CPC meeting, and the staff will present about the annual review then, and then we can do input and move forward at that time. But the staff has certainly been working very hard on it, and we appreciate that. Next on the updates is Brandy, the ED update. And then after the ED update, I believe that Brandy will be introducing the community engagement plan. So those are that's 2 steps.
Thanks, everybody. I will be as brief as possible. Just wanted to give some updates about the work, and what's going on in the office. We are in the process of, we were provided OPA's procedural manual, so we are going through the process of reviewing that. We recently had a reach out from the Attorney General's office to refer community members or CPC members to their police data group, which was recently in the newsletter that went out for you all to be able to apply and participate. We're really hoping that commissioners will take an interest and be a part of that work group. Also to OEO, CPC, OIG, we met recently with Dr. Khan regarding the City of Seattle's Hate Crimes and Crimes of Bias Prevention Working Group Charter. More information to come about that, but I'm hoping that there are also commissioners who would be interested in knowing more and being able to provide feedback for the City of Seattle Charter. Next, we have a podcast teaser script that has been in the process of being reviewed. Jesse has done an amazing job with our first episode, and so it's in the process of going through review with co-chairs, and will be sent out to them to have a firsthand look at. And then we're also working to get our collateral materials together, as Felicia will be rolling out a community engagement plan, placing our first order for collateral materials. So when we're out in community, we're able to provide resources and pass out things. And then I also wanted you all to know from my wrap up that our civic clerk first look meeting for our new board software platform. We were able to get our first presentation of what that's going to look like, and hoping to finish doing some more critiquing to that. So you all hopefully will see something maybe early September, possibly October, but really looking forward to what that board software is going to look like for us to help streamline and structure how our meetings are going, how we're putting out resources and meeting materials, the opportunity to do electronic voting and some other things, just to add a little bit more structure to how the meetings are going, and add some additional support. That's all I have for updates right now. I want to introduce our Community Engagement Director, Felicia Cross, so she can go over the Community Engagement Work Plan that was sent around to commissioners this week. Felicia?
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I am so super excited to have this opportunity to talk to all of the commissioners. I've had the opportunity to speak to most of you one-on-one within the last couple of weeks, and I'm still setting up time, and still would like to set up time to meet with those of you that I have not talked to. So I thank you, Brandy, for your leadership and the opportunity to present my community engagement plan for 2021. And I have this plan. I realize community engagement is super important to the whole of the CPC mission. And so with that, I just wanted to start out by just giving those of you who I've not had an opportunity to speak to yet, just a little bit of my background, not to go through my resume, but just a little bit of my background. I have been a part of, and Mother Walden can vouch for this, I have been a part of the work of the CPC and the consent decree from its very beginning. I was part of some of the first DOJ interviews that led us into this, to where we are now. I've been at the table. And so just because I haven't been a face for the commission, I have been a face in the community. I live in the same house that I've lived in all my life in Mount Baker Leschi area, very deep rooted into the community. My parents were both community people, and they owned a laundromat right up on 23rd and Union. And so we are vested in this community, and it means everything. So to have this position, I really take it to heart. Let's see, I'm not new, so that's my point, is that I'm not new to this work. I might be new to this position, but not new to this work. And I would just like to start off by saying that, and is Emily here with the slides? Okay. So I've sent out a proposal of my plan. Of course, this is going to be a living document because I'm excited to have a work group. But with that being said, I just want to put it out here, right now, that there are open positions. I need a couple of co-chairs, and there are open positions on the engagement work plan. So I'm going to be looking for someone to please step up so that we can really put this work out here. Community engagement is extremely important, as stated before. My next thing is the goals and the mission. You have it in front of you, I guess. The goals and the mission, I feel, drives what the community police engagement plan is about. And I'm just going to take just a second now to just briefly read what the goals and the vision and the mission of the CPC. The goal, and this comes straight out of the ordinance and the bylaws. It is the cities of Seattle's intent to ensure a comprehensive and sustainable and independent oversight system that guarantees a police department that has the trust, confidence, and respect of the community. We envision the vision. We envision communities and the Seattle Police aligned in shared safety, respect, and accountability goals. And the mission is the Seattle Police Commission listens to amplify and build common ground among communities affected by police in Seattle. We champion policing practices centered on justice and equity for all. So I think that's a very strong statement, and I know that we can live up to that. Moving on, I have laid out as you have in your hands, I guess the plan. I'm going to just go over a few of the highlights of what I see. Where we can start with the community engagement work group. I'm sorry. The community engagement work group, the plans should create opportunities for engagement of all communities through listening sessions, events, education, resources, and follow-up to community concerns. Follow-up is very important to building trust. When you follow up, people tend to give you more credibility. We want to create mechanisms to keep the community informed of the work of CPC and other accountability partners. We want to stay informed on topics directly affecting disenfranchised communities. And one of the important pieces of this work, I believe, will be that thank you. One of the important pieces of the work, I believe, will be with something I know that I've heard Mother Walden talking about for many years now, and she was able to produce one, but a rapid response plan to immediately respond to community when there are crises. It's say, for instance, all the shootings that happened a couple of weeks ago. We should be out here engaging with our community and letting them know who we are and what we're about. I found that a lot of community members don't know what CPC or the commission is about, and that's why, as Brandy spoke, we will be getting T-shirts and other items to get out and represent ourselves and let the community know who we are, what we are, and why we are. The commissioners, the CPC for engagement piece, the commissioners will be serving as liaisons for the community. And as it's written in the ordinance, there will be commissioners assigned to each district and to really be engaged with the different demographic councils and reporting back those concerns so that we can address them and bring them to the forefront for the whole commission. And the youth piece is really super important too. In the plan, you will see that I really mapped out a direction for youth engagement. After working with youth and being a foster parent and all those things, I realized that you have to meet the youth where they are. So I figured that the engagement, the commissioners, we will go to established groups, organizations and youth groups, working with groups. We can put some events around that and like have a commission night out to one of the big games that's happening with one of the youth groups. We can do like tournaments with Detective Cookie's Chess Club, things to engage the community and also try to build relationship with the police department, which is what we are tasked to do. There will be lots of educational presentations and this is just my map. But once I get to work with the work group and those who are coming on and those who are already a part of the work group, I am really looking forward to just taking what we have right here as a starting point and building from it in a robust way where there will hardly be anyone in the city that can't say they don't know who the Seattle Community Police Commission is, what they serve, what they're for, and how they're there to serve the community. I'll say again, I welcome this opportunity. I'm excited, very excited about this work now that I'm able to present it all to you. The one last thing I would like to mention before I open up for questions is that truly speaking to each and every one of you commissioners really empowered me and gave me a really good outlook for the determination and your dedication to this work. Because I, as a longtime life member here who have lots of connections in community relationships, is very, very important to me. So I'm excited, and I hope you are. And I hope you're excited enough to come join us. Even if you're not on the committee, come, engage on the work group plans and give us your comments, give us your thoughts, your suggestions. And then one other piece is, as you work in your different work groups, I'm hoping to have you be able to keep us as the middle point to get your information or get the information you're trying to gather through the engagement work, the engagement plan. So if there's any questions, I will be happy to answer. Are there any volunteers to step up and be a part of the engagement work group? I know you guys must have something to give. Okay, Mother Walden.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for the for the report. I mean, it's been a long time since we had somebody in this position, and usually for new commissioners don't know, it's been, when we're staffed up, we have 3 people in community engagement and 3 people working in the policy. So so that means that we still, that community engagement is not fully staffed yet. And so I hope that other people would step up. And the reason why she calls me Mother Walden, because she's rooted in the Black community. Most people call me that in the community. Not that I got power here. Just want to let people know that that's what people call me a lot. So thank you for your report. And I'm always willing to help where I can. I like going to meetings. So anyway, put that out there.
Thank you. I'll be looking for I'll be looking for you.
Yeah, Felicia, thank you for that report. Really appreciate you bringing some of the, the old body of work that we had paused for a minute while we were trying to staff up community engagement. Also really appreciate, in thinking of like real youth engagements and acknowledging that we have to meet young people where they're at, in spaces that they feel comfortable with, and would just love to continue to support that part of community engagement work and engaging with our young people that are often the ones that are most impacted by these systems, right? And whose voices are not often represented here. So appreciate the work plan. I'm here to support as much as I can.
Thank you, Joseph.
Hi, this is Erica. Felicia, thank you for your presentation. I think it's off to a great start. I personally have some things that we can chat about or put in or add to your plan. But I think I just wanted to say thank you for what you presented today, and it looks good. Thanks.
Thank you, Erica. I look forward to working with you on this work group, I hope. Hello?
Yes, I will try to join when I get time.
Okay.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
Who are the current co-chairs of the community engagement work group? And I think we also got an email from you recently about an event in the maybe in the international district that you were asking for commissioners to participate in. And am I correct about that? And do you still need participants?
Oh, so Reverend Hunter, let me just say, right now we do not have co-chairs, and that's why I'm pretty much really asking people to step up to be a part of the group. And I do need 2 co-chairs. I am hopeful that that this won't be a struggle, because we got to get the co-chairs so that we can get the work moving. And then as far as the activities are concerned, I've just been posting within the newsletter and the websites events that have been happening because of COVID and you know, all of the restrictions. We're not able. We have not been able to get out here like I would really like. But I mentioned before, my goal and plan and hope to you know, in working with the work group, that we will be identifiable by the next summer, when there are festivals, the events, the, you know, parades, that we are there with literature, with, you know, passing out information and swag or whatever in parades. So right now I've just been posting information about events and things that have been going on in the community, but not, I mean, we're not formally representing yet. But if ever you can just pull somebody to the side and tell them, ask them, do they know about CPC, and give them a little information, that's always a good thing.
I do just want to add for clarification, there are no co-chairs right now for the Community Engagement Committee. Joseph and Alina were co-chairs and stepped down just after Felicia took her position. And so we were waiting to appoint co-chairs until Felicia had a plan for her community engagement. And then we're planning on appointing co-chairs so that they could work collaboratively together. So that is a next step in the process that's being planned on happening, and has to do with just like a weird timing transition with the co-chairs who had stepped down.
Yes, so you can give that information to our co-chairs if you're interested. Hi, Suzette. Did you have a question?
I just wanted to say thank you for your presentation today. It looks great, and I look forward to talking to you at our meeting.
Good. I really look forward to talking to you too. I was down at the march and I looked for you, but of course with the mask and everything, I couldn't. I never did find you, but
well, thank you for coming. I appreciate you coming there and supporting us.
Thank you. And I got a chance to meet Douglas at the march as well.
Yeah, it was good to see you, Felicia. And I know we also spoke separately about this already, but I'm happy to be a part of the community engagement work group.
Great. Thank you so much. So much.
I nominate Douglas to be one of the co-chairs. I'm kidding. No, I'm probably not catching nominations right now.
Thanks, Joseph. I second that motion.
But following up on what Laurent said, if, you know, it really, you know, we would love to hear who does have the bandwidth and the interest to take on the co-lead position. And, you know, so that we can make sure that Felicia has the support she needs to do this work. So Douglas, I've heard that you're interested. I've heard that Erica's interested in participating. And then once you have that first meeting, maybe discuss amongst yourselves who can, you know, and then we can move forward with co-leads, because this is one of our most important aspects of our work. So getting it, you know, moving is really exciting.
I actually didn't touch up on the last, do I have a little more time? I actually didn't touch up on the last slide, but it kind of spells out, the meetings will be the second Tuesday for planning, and then on the fourth Tuesday will be the actual open to the community meetings. And so, and that's all to be negotiated, but that's what we have going for right now. And so like I said before, I would like for all the commissioners, as many as possible, to join in these meetings and be able to flow your work, the work that you're working on back and forth. And because it's really going to take all of us. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's going to take all of us to bring all of our perspectives, experiences, and to make this the best that we can make it.
Felicia,
Mother?
Looks like Reverend Walden has her hand up.
Okay. I was Mother Walden.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to ask, maybe it can't be answered at this meeting, but put it on the table. I mean, because this is the first time that the community engagement person has to work by themselves as staff and not have any other staff support the work that I mean, you had Minty, Roxanne, and Nick. Minty was first, and Roxanne was hired to help support the work, and then Nick was hired to help support the work. So if you don't answer that question now, I just wanted to put that out there. Maybe we can for a report. It's when maybe these other positions might be filled, so that this director won't be handicapped by not having the staffed up. And especially if it's already captured in the budget to be able to have those two positions. Again, this is information for the other commissioners to know, since they knew that historically it's been staffed for 3 on each side. So you might not be able to discuss that right now as people are concerned about the time. We used to go 3 hours, people don't know that. We shorted our time because we were meeting weekly for COVID. And that's why they all talk about being short of time, is because we shortened the time because of COVID, and we were meeting every week. So we can always go back to the regular time that we had. I'm done. I wait for staff to be, I wait for a report from Brandy on that. I just wanted to put it out there, let people know that the reason why you asking for so much help is because you don't have the internal staff also to help work on this. Thanks.
Thank you. Joseph, did you have something you want to say, and then we'll wrap it up?
Yeah. Thanks, Felicia. So, myself and Alina, we just thought it'd be best to see if we can get new leaders, to take the helm. We've been doing it for a minute, and I know that, Felicia deserves some new blood. I will be there, on Tuesdays to continue to support, so we're not running away, myself and Alina, but sometimes you just need a little bit of newness, and I feel like Felicia deserves some of, some fresh energy, as opposed to us old grumpy commissioners that have been sitting here for a while. But we will still be there, Felicia, to support you on the second Tuesday. So, but yeah, wanted to name that.
Thank you. I definitely thank all of you. All the one-on-ones I've had, all the information I've gained, the different perspectives, and I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, co-chairs and Brandy, for the. Oh, Mark, you had something? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Can you hear
No,
me?
that's yes.
I just wanted to thank you for your report. It was wonderful, and I'm so very happy that you have joined us in this work, because I know throughout the time that I've known you, how hard you work for the community and with the community, and with a fair and balanced understanding of the community. I know how hard your mom worked in the community, and all your family. So I appreciate you're a valued person that we needed, and I'm glad that we have your talent. I appreciate you, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mark. Okay, so if anything comes to mind after this meeting, then please don't hesitate to email me or call me. Anybody interested in stepping up to be co-chairs, you can reach out to myself and the co-chairs. And I would thank you again for this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia. Reverend Walden, I just wanted a quick second to respond to the staffing comment and let you know that the reason why we have not fulfilled the other positions that have historically reported to the community engagement director is we were waiting to get one, get her acclimated, build out a work plan, and then revisit the structure of how we want to staff community engagement. But I want to let all the commissioners know that community engagement has been something across the office. We've had every department, our policy, communications, that's a leg that we've all have a vested interest in and have worked in and have continued to uphold and support. So Felicia is not alone by any means. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you so much, Felicia. We are really excited to see our community engagement work get off the ground and to get the work group staffed up and running. Next on the agenda, I believe, is our work group roles and responsibilities discussion. This was a discussion that was requested at the last meeting, and I think one that is probably a bit overdue. Maybe we should have had this when we first started the work groups, the little cart before the horse. So we're hoping to get some clarification about what the work group roles and responsibilities are. I think specifically there were questions about the co-chair's role and staff role. And sort of where decision-making lies. And it's a sort of a complicated equation that probably shifts depending on the particular situation. We, I believe, are presenting this with Nia. And so Nia is the CPC staff person who is really responsible for supporting the work groups and has done just a tremendous amount of work in getting work groups up and running, making sure that the meetings are moving along, that research is happening. Her presentations are always really, really detailed and thoughtful. And so, we appreciate her for that. We haven't run through this presentation before. So I think Nia is going to take the first handful of slides to give a background about sort of what the bases are for the structures of the work groups and the roles and responsibilities. And then Aaron and I will talk more about the roles of the co-chairs and the co-leads and committee members. And then we'll talk about staff roles after that. And then once we're, obviously you can ask questions whenever you want, but we do have clearly a built-in time after the presentation in order to have a fulsome discussion to find out where people stand in their thoughts about the way in which the work groups are running. And the one thing I do want to flag, because this has been an issue and brought up multiple times, is that the bylaws were changed last year. And that changed the structure and the way in which the CPC operates on some levels. The co-chairs last year and the governance committee created new bylaws and they were put into order. And so some of historical practices translate and some of them may not. And that's a discussion that we can have more fulsome once we run through where we stand. So I'm going to turn it over to Nia.
Thanks, Ron. All right. There we go. Good morning, everyone. I am going to run through the first few slides of our presentation on work group roles and responsibilities. So as we're discussing this, the guiding documents that we are really going to focus on are the ordinance, the bylaws, which, as Laurent was mentioning, were drafted and revised in the governance committee last year and were approved by the CPC at the end of last year in December. Additionally, we'll be talking about some of the specific items that each like co-chairs, co-leads, committee members, and staff are authorized to do through the roles and responsibilities document that was shared when we first started launching our work groups. So from the ordinance, this is really where the CPC gets the power to kind of do the work that it does. So CPC is self-governing and functions independently. And we have and do adopt bylaws to govern the activities that we do. So from the bylaws, Article 7, I'm sorry, is where you'll find information on the committees. So committees can be formed by the co-chairs to accomplish specific tasks or work outside of the commission's regularly scheduled meetings. Committees do not exercise decision-making authority on behalf of the commission, but act as an advisory capacity to the full commission. And committee meetings shall comply with the Open Public Meetings Act to the extent required. Next, there's a difference within the bylaws between standing committees and ad hoc committees. So standing committees are permanent committees of the commission. So we currently only have 2 standing committees, which are governance. Governance sets the agenda for CPC meetings and directs the strategy of the organization.
And the membership of that committee is the co-chairs and the co-lead of all standing and ad hoc committees. The other standing committee is the Community Engagement Committee. So this committee has kind of the dual task of making the work that the CPC does accessible to the broader community and ensuring that the work is reflective of values and priorities of the community. So CPC staff and community members may attend the Community Engagement Committee meetings, and these meetings are typically held outside of typical work hours, like outside of that 9 to 5, to prevent creating barriers for community involvement for that reason. The other type of committees are ad hoc committees. They are organized to address any emergent or relevant topics and issues, and they will stand as long as the commission needs them to. And they can also be combined with other ad hoc committees if the topic calls for that. So our current ad hoc committees are the Behavioral Health Committee, the Complaint and Appeals Process, Police Practices, and State Legislative Agenda, which is not currently active. Excuse me. And now I'll turn it over to Laron and Aaron. Go over the next parts.
Okay, so in the bylaws, when we went through and changed them, they really clarify that the co-chairs shall jointly make all committee appointments and designate committee chairs. The co-chairs may create and dissolve ad hoc committees, as it said, to respond to relevant or emergent issues. And public-facing documents, I'm not sure what that is referring to, but in terms of how we handle all documents that come out from the CPC, upon affirmative vote of the commission to issue a letter or other document, the co-chairs may delegate to other commissioners or the executive director the task of drafting a letter or document consistent with the content approved in the vote. The co-chairs shall have final authority to approve letter or document to ensure that it follows the intent of the full commission. Next slide, please.
Sorry, having some difficulties. It's not responding.
So the next slide talks about the role of the co-leads. So the co-chairs set the work groups and set the work generally of what the work groups are supposed to address. So behavioral health or complaint and appeals. The co-leads are the commissioners that drive the work within the context that has been set by the co-chairs. The co-leads work is critical and important because no work in the work groups would get done without them. And they have, a lot of authority to determine, what research will be done, what ways to develop recommendations. But ultimately the goal of those work groups is to provide advice to the commission so that the commission can make a decision as a whole about what ultimate positions they want to take, what ultimate next steps they want to take based off of the work that the work groups have done. And so while the co-leads direct the body of work, the general parameter, the umbrella of the work is set by the co-chairs. The co-leads lead the work and then bring it to the commission so that the commission can vote on action based off of those recommendations. Erin, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I would just point out, small thing, point out that, the work groups with the co-leads is really a partnership with staff to develop the work that comes back to the commission for approval.
Dr. Pinto, it looks like maybe you might have a question. Your box lit up for a second. I can't tell.
Oh, sorry, I'm just not on mute. I'll go on mute. I don't have a question right now.
Okay. Can we move to the next slide?
Okay, so this is roles and responsibilities of the co-leads, and this was presented to co-leads as part of the orientation that was given before the start of the work groups. and really goes into, I'm not going to read every item here, but really talks about the specific, responsibilities, preparing for the meetings, coordinating with staff, and, facilitating, making sure that staff support for the research and presentations. During these work group meetings, they lead and facilitate the conversation and could delegate tasks or responsibilities to other work members. And they ensure and encourage the entire commission's participation in the work. And then that's the process of running those work groups. And then there's the other half of how it comes back to the CPC. So during CPC meetings, the co-leads would give updates on what their work group's been working on and lead any discussion on work related to that work group's work. Additionally, they check in with staff and with staff on the work. And then also the fact that one of the co-leads, and it can alternate, will attend the governance committee so that, we have full participation there as well. Next slide. And then we, from that same document is the role of committee members. As we've discussed in the process, the whole purpose of developing committees is that so that we can move work forward, and that there isn't time within our, bi-monthly meet or every twice a month meetings to really get deep into these topics. And so work groups are where a lot of the deeper work happens. So the role of work group members is to be actively engaged, to regularly attend work group meetings, being prepared to discuss the items on the agenda, and participating in the work plan. Attendance is super important, and the participation as well. And then, as we said before, to be able to present and talk about the work of the work groups in regular commission as requested by the co-leads. Next slide. So where does this put staff? Well, the role of staff is to support these work groups. And a lot of the work that happens in between the work group meetings is staff, pulling, whether it's doing the research or presentation. So, facilitating, making sure that the meeting invites go out, and making sure we're doing research on the specific items that the work group has requested, potentially reaching out to other entities or agencies to bring in presentations from subject matter experts to the work group, or on behalf of the work group to the entire commission, and to make sure that all the, the information for the upcoming meeting comes out. During the work group meeting, staff will give presentations on the research and work that's been conducted at the request of the work group leads. They'll make sure to take minutes. And during the full CPC meetings, at the request of the work group co-leads, staff can make presentations that they have given to the work group to the commission at large. Next slide.
And one thing I just want to add to that is that the staff are incredibly talented and very dedicated and work super hard. And we would not be able to do the work without the expertise and the diligence that they bring. So, baked into this, and it doesn't explicitly say this, is that we rely upon the staff substantially for their keen eye, their expertise that they bring in order to advise the work groups and the commission as a whole. And I just wanted to say that because most of the bullets on here make it seem sort of administrative, but they also are providing a really intense substantive support, and I wanted to acknowledge that.
Can we take the slideshow down for the conversation portion so everyone can see each other? Thank you. So that is an overview based on what is in the ordinance, the bylaws, and the rules and responsibility that was developed by the staff. So now it is open for questions, comments. How does this feel for people? Is this You know, we approved these bylaws before many of the commissioners that are currently on the commission were on the commission. If, you know, if this is not feeling like the way we'd like to move forward, here's the opportunity to have that conversation. Reverend Walden?
Well, I want to thank you for the presentation. And also I would like to maybe empower some of the commissioners who reached out, who actually wanted to know about things and how things worked. And also from their experience, you know, who have been working in work groups, you know, their experience. I think a couple of work groups was meeting, because this is the longest we've done and not have work groups. And also like you just said, I want to really commend you on that one, that the bylaws are, if people not feeling that this is working for them, because this happened before they got here, I think people should absolutely chime in. If they're not willing to do it today, maybe they can send you an email on how they feel about how things are working, because clearly some people are feeling that it's not working for them, and maybe they're not feeling confident enough to say it in a public meeting, and maybe they will send an email to you and Laurent about what is what they've already discussed, maybe to in another setting. So
yeah, and we absolutely welcome people talking here, sending emails, and you know, also putting forward suggestions. You know, I think if it's not working for you, it would be helpful to know what would. So, you know, I think we want to figure out, you know, a way to make this work, and however which way you all feel you need to make it work, you know, whether that's, you know, with our support or some other way, you know, we're here to listen to it. And so, you know, really, I'm hoping that commissioners have something to say now, but if you don't, email too.
Well, I thought I heard you say, Laurent, that the co-chairs set the direction for the work groups, and that the co-leads are then to carry that out. But I'm not seeing that in the bylaws, where you set the direction. It would seem to me that we would follow the direction of the community that we hear, as well as the whole commission.
Yeah, so I think trying to find.
Well, what it says is that the co-chairs establish the work groups to achieve a specific purpose. So thereby the co-chairs identify an issue that needs to be studied, and thereby set a work group to work on that. That's where that is coming from. If that's not clear, once again, this is the time for us as a commission to go through that. And if that's not the way that other people are reading it, then we need to look at that.
Well, I like I said, I'm new to this, so as I read through the bylaws, I didn't read it that way. So
yeah, and to Reverend Hunter, we're all new to this. The bylaws are new. They just went into effect December 2020. You know, we're all, you know, literally we're all new to this because it's a new approach. So if the way in which it's structured isn't working, or if there's a concern, let's talk about it. But there does, I mean, my understanding is that the role of the co-chairs is to set sort of the you know, define what the body of work is, behavioral health. And then, you know, the co-leads can figure out the parameters of what that work looks like inside of that. And if that's not what people want, we can change the bylaws, we can figure out a new approach to all of this. Reverend Walden?
Well, since I'm old and people don't want to know what's old, but you know, what we lost in the bylaws is the fact that the commission helped set the commission had at our commissioner meetings. I mean, I think we have people here long enough on the commission to know that we would discuss what we think, what should be a priority. We, the commission, set the work groups that we thought was a priority. And if that's missing, if that's not in the bylaws, well, then that's an error. And I think that we should revisit that. The co-chairs does not. The co-chairs carries out some of the work, You know, everybody gets their directions from the commission. I mean, and so if we were going to be coming up with groups today, what we want to work on, we would have that as part of, and then commissioners would vote on what we thought, and then we would always leave possibilities for emerging issues that something could come up tomorrow.
Yeah,
So
and you helped develop the bylaws, right? They were done
And
last.
I'll just point out, we didn't change that sentence. That sentence is actually from the original bylaws. I'm looking at them now, and in the 2017 bylaws, it says almost verbatim, committees may be formed by the co-chairs to accomplish specific tasks or work outside the commission's regularly scheduled meetings. Committees shall not exercise decision-making authority on behalf of the commission. So we actually didn't change that language from the original bylaws to the new bylaws.
well, we didn't present anything. We didn't present that the new commissioners could absolutely be part of coming up with some new work that they might want to work on. I mean, so there's something missing here. There's a flow that's missing. There's something that's missing, and I know that you were legalistic and you really wanted to get those bylaws done. So now maybe the new commissioners are feeling left out, and by now we should have something rolling. And so we have to figure out how we're going to get people engaged, because they're just coming to a meeting and they're not reporting on what they're working on. They're wondering why they should keep coming to a meeting. So
that's why we're having this conversation. We'd like
that's
to
why
hear what people and how people would like to see this work.
And to that point, I think Dr. Pinto maybe wanting to make a comment. He turned on his video, and it's a voice that we have not heard yet. So
Yeah, I think I want to echo Reverend Walden. I have yet to experience, you know, the commission providing their input on anything other than approving minutes. And you know, with the sort of whiplash about the announcement that co-chairs aren't to draft any documents themselves, and then quickly followed up with an email that, oh, no, you know, so I'm still sort of reeling from this and what our role is, both as co-chairs and commissioners. And so I guess I'm not being very specific in my complaints, but I'm just wondering what our role is here.
Dr. Pinto, I don't think you were confusing at all in what you're trying to share and express to us. You know, to me, just kind of listening in, also being a former commissioner myself and coming to this role as a commissioner, it sounds to me like we just need to have some really specific and exact clarity around the decision-making authority, right? And what this process is going to look like and the flow of it. And in retrospect, this presentation came a little too late, and I'll take some ownership for that. The orientation part of this, we should have done this in the beginning before work groups were assigned and conversations were had. And so I would like to take some ownership in that aspect. However, I think the conversation that we're having now is, how are we going to make this flow? And how are we going to talk about this in a way that really honors the true decision-making authority? Because what I'm hearing from a historical context is co-chairs do not drive the work. The commission drives the work. And that's a fact. That's always been the case. But I think we may be a little bit of semantics and process. And so let's actually use this time to carve out what makes the most sense, right? Because I think on some level, we've heard what's not working, I believe. And if we haven't, please, everyone, please, please, please speak up. But looking at what's not working, I would really love for us to focus on what would be a better, more improved process for you that makes you feel like you are not only engaged in the work, but are having a voice in the work that's being pushed out. And I hope that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Yes.
And I do want to address Dr. Pinto's comment that the commission hasn't actually voted on or participated in any major substantive position taking. And that's because early on, February, March, we voted, we held public hearings around collective bargaining, use of force, crowd control, and we pushed those recommendations out that we, had commissioners weigh in on an individual, but we haven't actually, in the last couple of months, we've been doing work, but haven't actually pushed out any major substantive positions, in part because the work groups are just beginning, and in part because there just hasn't been that moment, although I think there are a couple of deadlines that are coming down the road. So I just want to answer that head on. It isn't like there have been like substantive decisions made on the part of the commission that are happening outside of the commission. There just haven't been opportunities for that at this point because we're still doing the work to get advice from the work groups on what positions to take on topics. So.
But there have clearly been work products that have been developed that have sort of seemingly bypassed the full commission. We mentioned the annual report draft, and I understand why, but and then Reverend Hunter brought up a letter that was drafted within a work group that was not visible to the full commission. And so I think those are the things that I wonder, like if I develop something in my work group, what is the process? If I work with staff to develop something, how do I ensure that the full commission gets to have input on that? And
so the way in which it currently is structured, and the letter that Reverend Hunter and Austin Field worked on was actually procedural, a little bit wonky, but the work groups develop their work product, and then the co-chairs take a look at it. It goes before the commission. Maybe the co-chairs don't even take a look at it. That letter was unusual because it actually was supposed to come from the commission because it was a report about the monitor plan. We wanted police practices to take a look at it. And then when it came back, there were really not even substantive issues. There were like really some structural and some basic issues that we wanted to clean up before sending it before the whole commission. So that letter is still out there and it just hasn't made it before the commission. We've had, and same with the annual report, unfortunately, a number of like really, the first draft of the annual report, the commission didn't see because it focused on work from the wrong year. And it didn't seem like a productive thing to put before the commission at that point. So there are like, there has to be at least some amount of review for just like basic quality before it gets before the commission. And our staff are incredibly effective and they do a great job for sure. And part of this is like most of the staff is pretty new. The commission is new and we're just trying to figure out how to make that work.
We're going to go to questions in a second, but I just want to acknowledge that neither of these have been finalized because neither of them have come to the commission yet for discussion and approval. So all of this stuff that's going on is prior to, none of these have gone out or been finalized because they haven't been seen by the commission. I see Suzette and then Reverend Walden.
And my hand's up as well.
I think for me, part of the
We can't hear you, Suzette, or I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
It's a little low.
It's muffled. It's low.
Here, let me see. Can you hear me now?
Still the same.
Huh. How about now?
Still the same, unfortunately.
Why don't you go for it and we'll just all be very quiet and listen.
Okay. So I think that part of my concern is that, when the full commission is getting the final, we end up getting the final and then we have to vote on it. It's hard because of the fact that we're not brought along in the process, which would be conducive of us making a very a good decision, right? Instead of us making a quick and possibly haste decision, or maybe us not having that opportunity to really think about what is being asked of us to vote on. So even though the work product may not be complete, I think that it's still beneficial to bring it to the full commission
That's right.
than to just, give us only the final product
That's right.
that we then have to vote on. Because then we're not really able to put in our thoughts and concerns into whatever product has been being drafted and created. That's been an issue for me, and I can only speak for myself, but I'm pretty sure that I speak for quite a few people on this commission.
Okay. I will go to Reverend Wall. I just want to say, so what I'm here, make sure I'm hearing you correctly, Suzette. You would like to see the work actually be happening in the commission meeting so that you can see it as it progresses, rather than in the work groups and then seeing it when they're completed. Am I understanding you correctly?
Where there's at least where there's more than just one opportunity, or just us having only the final product.
Okay, I thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was hearing you correctly. Reverend Walden and then Reverend Hunter.
Oh yeah, well, I agree with Suzette, and also I don't know where we lost this at in the bylaws, but the co-chair's job was before, when we had the strategy meeting, was to just put stuff on the agenda from the other groups, whatever they brought forth, was to put it on the agenda and set the agenda for the next meeting. And I don't know if that process is still happening, or if things are being censored at that time or whatever. I mean, stuff like that. And so if we've lost the continuity of how the work should flow, maybe we should go back and revisit the bylaws at another time. And I'll yield the rest of my time. I mean, I don't have time. I don't have to yield time, but I'll give the rest. I'm done, and I'll pass it to Reverend Hunter.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess when Austin and I helped write this document with staff, we knew that there were some positions in there that the commission had not taken a vote on. And so as far as we were concerned, we had to take it to the full commission before we could send the letter to SPD. And it's been well over a month that document was yanked, and we have yet to have a conversation with the co-chairs. So if there were some issues in it, it would seem to me that the co-chairs would have some conversations with the co-leads so that we can move this process along, and that hasn't happened.
So I want to address a couple of things. One, from my perspective, we were not addressing substance. There certainly were things that the commission hadn't voted on in that letter. We weren't at all censoring that or yanking that. There were structural problems with the letter that we wanted in order to present the committee with.
What is structural problem? Why don't you tell us what structural problems are? So
when I read the letter, I had a hard time following it because there were ideas that were put forward early on that were not defined, and so didn't make sense. Like, you had to read through the letter to get to the middle to go back to the front to understand it. So that's
in the meeting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it literally was. It needed like that type of revision. We were not taking out like positions or anything like that. So,
but we haven't had a conversation about that. If there were some structural issues, which I disagree with, and the letter was great, but if there were some structural things, then that could have been addressed easily and the process could continue. What it felt like happened is that you all, the co-chairs just yanked the letter and aborted the whole process. And without a conversation, it felt like a power grab, and that I didn't like. And I'm a writer, so I write. And so I did not see the structural issues that you saw. And if you saw something, then why didn't we have a conversation about it?
There's a conversation, we saw the issues that we saw, we asked staff to take back to the work group. But I think what I'm hearing is that the co-leads would have liked to have heard those directly from the co-chairs. Is that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. Instead of just feeling like you yanked our work.
I see Dr. Pinto, Suzette, and then Tasha. Dr. Pinto, go ahead.
Sorry. So I agree. So structural issues seem quite straightforward to fix or address. And so if there was this editing that needed to take place before, it just seems like it's been a month. Why haven't we seen it? You know, and again, I'm trying to get a sense of the process of creating documents. Do they go through the co-chairs for a stamp of approval before they go to the commission?
Not. They should not.
Or not. And so I'm just trying to understand process here. You know, this is a lot of work, and I just want to make sure that we're doing this efficiently. And for a letter that's had identified structural issues, whatever those are, to still not be visible to the commission doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
So no, the co-chairs do not, you know, the co-chairs do have to approve things before they go out to the public. That is part of the process.
That's right. That's part of the process.
We're trying to make sure, because we have limited, and once again, this is where we've been coming from. If that needs to change, that's why we're having this conversation. But trying to make sure that because we have such a limited time in these meetings, that we were bringing things that were ready to be read rather than things that might still have grammar issues or things like that. And I'm not saying that specifically about this letter at all, but I'm saying, so that's where we were involved. But the challenge is that we have 2 hours, and, you know, we pushed a bunch of work to the next meeting so we could have this conversation because it's so important. But, you know, that's part of, and then the last meeting we had the, you know, the SIR report. So time is not reflective of the importance. It's reflective of all the different things that come onto the schedule. Not saying that's an excuse, but that's what we've been dealing with. But what I'm hearing is that the commission, if I'm correct, Dr. Pinto, the commission would like to see work in a much rawer form and not wait until it is in a more finalized form before reviewing it. Is that accurate?
Well, I think we should trust our co-commissioners when they have a work product that they would like input on from the commission. That's it. Like that, then it's on the agenda. No, you know, and even if it's wacky that my commission says we want to make sure that SPD changes their uniform color to purple, and we're ready. Like, you guys then tell me, that's crazy. Why? It's not even in your purview. Like, shut up. That's fine. But I think we should trust each other to make those decisions.
Okay, thank you. Suzette, you have your hand up? Is that what?
Talking, we can't hear you, Suzette.
Not even a little bit this time.
And it looks like Suzette's mic is unmuted too, so it might just be a full audio problem now.
Okay, so I'm gonna circle to the next person, and if Suzette, your audio comes back on, let us know. Tasha?
No, we can't hear you either, Tasha, if you're
Is that
speaking.
oh,
there you are.
I'm having some connectivity issues, so my apologies if I do drop out. But my concerns are kind of along the same lines as Dr. Pinto, in that with content issues to me seem a little different than structural issues with the letter. Content issues, or something were mentally incorrect or incorrectly stated, I can understand not bringing that to the commission. In terms of like grammatical errors or anything in terms of structural, you should have talked about this instead of this first. I personally, I can get past that. I can get past that to see that the content is correct. We can all agree that the content is good, or that we disagree on what's being brought to the table, and then the structural issues can be dealt with and figured out at the later date. So I have concerns with not having seen anything at all, or without knowing anything that was talked about in this mysterious letter that's out there, and understanding anything about what we were supposed to be even talking about or agreeing on, or anything that brought to the table. And that to me would be frustrating. I get to work on something behind the scenes, but when you work on something behind the scenes and just get told no without even having the opportunity to bring it to the commission is a little disillusioning.
Thank you. I see Douglas, but I want to, Reverend Walden, do you mind if
Yeah, I do. I just want the new commissioners to know that we got to do this 2-hour bracket because of COVID. Before COVID, February 2020, 2020, we were meeting first and third Wednesdays for 3 hours. That was our set time. It was no rushing, not shutting people down. That was our regular time. Then we went, because of COVID, we started meeting every week. We met every week from March to June, every week for 2 hours. And within on the second and fourth Wednesdays, the committee met in those days. They met during that time because we were meeting every week. We went back in June. I mean, and Colette wanted us to stay a weekly meeting because she felt like we were getting to know one another better and all of that. We went back to our regular time, well, a regular schedule, first and third Wednesdays, but we cut off the third hour. So we've always, since conception, we met 3 hours. And so you're feeling rushed because we cut the time down. That's something that can be visited. I mean, I just want new commissioners to know that. I mean, I'm out of here. This is my last go round. I want new commissioners to know that they have a lot more voice and that they can change things. There's nothing set here. These bylaws can be redone. There's nothing but a piece of paper. We got a city attorney. And so nothing, you're not stuck. And I'm just trying to empower new commissioners because, and sometimes somebody else has to speak. And so that's what I'm doing. Empower them that we could go back to 3 hours if people chose to that. So and then you wouldn't feel so rushed. Thank you. And I'm done with my hand up.
Thank you, Reverend Walden. Yes, that's exactly the case. There is a process for revising bylaws, but it can be reopened at any point to make changes that need to be made. Douglas, I wanted to acknowledge you.
Aaron, really quickly, sorry, Douglas, not to cut you off. It looks like Suzette has called in as well. So I just want you all to know that it looks like she's also called in to be able to.
Anybody wants to put on the table a motion to extend our meetings to 3 hours or for us to meet every week, we can, please feel free to do that and we can vote on it. So just putting that out there to address that. And I think was Douglas next?
So Douglas and then Suzette, since Douglas hasn't had a chance to speak today.
Thanks. So yeah, I mean, my kind of concern with this whole kind of conversation is just like, if especially new commissioners and work groups are feeling like they want to put stuff forward and have energy to be productive and like put out content and help us develop positions, that's something that we need to figure out a way like not to stand in the way of, so that we can kind of like Reverend Walden was just saying, like fully empower people to, take action, take positions, and develop that work. And so if there's a process that's not happening right now that is like preventing that from happening in a timely manner, let's figure that out. And I'm just wondering, for this specific instance, and I guess moving forward, could we just like get a commitment right here to that at the next meeting? We're going to have a chance as a full commission to review this letter, and can we, get the letter sent to us like as soon as possible so that we can have time to review it? And then I guess moving forward, I don't know if this needs to be changed in the bylaws. I feel like maybe it doesn't, but could just process wise, like how we're all working together. If work groups have work products that they're creating, stuff that they want to put forward to the commission, could they just go ahead and do that? I mean, could they just send that to the co-chairs, and then the co-chairs are like, great, we'll put it on the agenda. Everyone on the commission has a chance to review it. And then at that time, we can all kind of chime in, offer edits, suggestions, maybe it needs to go back to the work group for a revision or whatever, but maybe that kind of process would like address the concerns that I'm hearing from.
And that is why we have the governance committee meetings that include the co-leads from each, so that we can be moving work from those, and we're still getting up to speed with co-leads attending the governance meeting. We've definitely had some, but there isn't a regular flow to that yet. So that's, but I think that's set in place to do exactly that, Douglas. So, and I think that, at this point, I don't see any reason that we wouldn't be able to, put the update from the committee and the letter from police practices on the agenda. Suzette, are you able to hear us and speak now? Maybe you have a question or a comment?
Yes. So I would agree with everything that Douglas just said. That I think that it's important if work groups are creating product that we as the full commission have a say in that. Not just the final edit. And I think that what Douglas had brought forward really touches on what I was asking for, and that we're seeing this product more in its raw form, so that we as a commission, we have our say in the product as well, because it's not just the work group, it's not just the co-chairs, it is the full commission. These letters and these items that are going out to, whether it be community partners, whether it be to the community, whatever it is, it still has our names on it too, as a commission. So as a commission, we need to work together to finalize these products, not just vote on a final product that has been created. And I think that that's what's been missing in the last couple years, is that true commissioner buy-in on the products that are being sent out.
Okay, so just confirming that that once again, that I'm making sure I hear correctly, that commissioners would like to spend more of the meeting time, our regular meeting time, reviewing works in progress so that they can have a say in it, than keeping that work in the work group and seeing a final product. Am I understanding correctly? I'm just trying to confirm. If
Yes,
that's correct, so we will spend more time in these meetings focused on doing some of this work during the meeting. And so that would raise the question of time. We do have certain obligations that we have to meet with regards to our accountability partners in terms of, like presentations to us. So are people thinking they'd like to move to 3-hour meetings? While you think about that, I see that Erica has her hand up. Erica?
Yes, hi. I just wanted to offer a few comments after hearing others speak. I think work groups should be able to develop a product and share it with the commissioners to give everybody opportunity to provide input, right? I think that as a commission, right, we owe it to each other to be inclusive. And so I think just presenting something and voting on it without having any input or being able to communicate additional ideas, it doesn't, I think it defeats the purpose, right? If we're a community-led commission and we're not gonna allow our own group to provide input, I think that doesn't sit right with me. So I think one way that we could do this is when each work group comes up with, right here, when each work group comes up with, a product, we can figure out what's the best mode of delivery. Do we share via email to the whole commission, or do we bring it up during a meeting? And then once the commissioners do have a chance to provide input, I don't think it hurts to ask public for input either. Just a
No,
thought.
I hear you. The one thing I will note is that we are not permitted to do any work as a full commission by email because we are subject to the OPMA, the Open Public Meetings Act, which is why often when you get an email from staff that's to the whole commission, they will have a note on the bottom that says, please do not reply all to this because we have to. So if we're going to have these conversations, they do have to be in the open meeting setting, like the conversation we're having right now. We don't have the option to change that. That is part of the reason that we have work groups, so that forming work and having the conversations that we want to have to create this work can happen in a smaller setting, as long as there are not a quorum of commissioners on a work group.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I see what you're saying.
We do, if we are going to start bringing all formative work to the commission for full commission editing and input, it does have to be during this open public meeting session.
And that's fine. And maybe another thing to add is if that's the route we want to go, and obviously that's our only option because of the OPMA requirements, what we could do is when the work groups have something to present, we can notify this, the co-chairs and the CPC staff that we want to have something on the agenda and present our work in committee. But at the same time, we need to find ways to let the public know that we'll be presenting in the committee so that they can have a chance to listen in as well and provide any feedback.
I absolutely agree. And that is why we're, very excited to have a community engagement plan that was discussed today. And, then co-leads have that opportunity within the governance committee to say, hey, we've got something we want to get input on. Can we have it on the next agenda? So that's the way it hasn't quite gotten to that point yet, but that was the way it was structured. Suzette, I still see your hand up, and also Reverend Walden. So Suzette, was that from before, or do you have a new comment?
Nope, that one was from before. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Reverend Walden?
Yeah, I just want to go back to the meetings. I think Joseph was here, and I think he's still here. Joseph was here when we was doing 3-hour meetings, and the body of work that got done. And we always had time for all of the. I mean, we had hundreds of reports. I mean, somebody was always coming, but the work groups always got their time on the agenda. And if it was no current update, they said it was no current update. And if it was a current update, they would tell us what the update was, what they needed from us. And then whoever, if the IG or whoever was coming, those people always had time. Very few times. And Aaron, you've been here since 2000. You came on in May 1st, and during the storm, when 8 commissioners came on at one time, and so you have some history. You have some knowledge on how things did go. I mean, and how we did get the work done. I mean, you clearly came in and got busy. You wanted to do an ad hoc committee on governance. That's what you brought. And I mean, you brought that as a new commissioner. You wanted to bring order, or you couldn't bring structure because you didn't think we had any, but other folks thought we did. But that's what you did. And so new commissioners, they need to know that if they wanted to have an ad hoc committee about the purple uniform, they could have a ad hoc committee, and maybe everybody would attend and maybe not. But we're not presenting this opportunity because you came in asking for it. You came in with that 2 years ago. I mean, and now we're not giving the other commissioners an opportunity if they want to actually add a committee that's not there, that's something that's dear to their heart, that they have their structure for them to do that. They can do that. They're not limited to the work groups that's there. They're not limited to those work groups. They can absolutely put something on the agenda. This agenda is just a draft agenda. They can come put something else on the agenda, and the committee can do that. Commissioner, you know, again, it's about empowerment. You came on empowered. I mean, and you got your ad hoc committee, and you worked on those bylaws and worked on structure. The structure that you worked on is encapsulated today in the bylaws with Bessie, myself, and other people. Actually, the executive now actually was part of that committee. So and so Emma and all these people worked on this. So I want people to understand that there's opportunity for him here. And that's all I want to do. I want them to understand that. And you remember you came in on the storm. You remember you came on and said, I wanted to do governance and set up an ad hoc committee. And what did the other co-chairs say? Oh yeah, thank you for that. Go ahead. And then we put people on that committee for you.
And that's exactly why we're having this conversation, because, you know, often with legal documents like the ordinance that created us or the bylaws, you can do absolutely all the conversations and think you have them perfect. But when you get out and start working with them, you might discover there are issues. And that is absolutely what, you know, we're trying to hear, so that if there are adjustments that need to be made, so that this bylaws are a living document that should reflect the commission that they govern. And so absolutely, you know, they are not set in stone. And so what we're seeing is, you know, the limits or the areas of shaping where we didn't quite get it right. And so this is, you know, an opportunity for, and I would suggest that it be a new commissioner who hasn't had a lot of experience with these particular bylaws to take a look at them and say, because when you've drafted something and worked on something for months, you see it in your head the way you think it says, but somebody else needs, that's why we have editing, because somebody else reads it and they don't read it the way you thought it was said. So I think it would be amazing if a new group of commissioners would like to take a stab at making some edits to the bylaws. Teresa Chen is our city attorney liaison who works with the commission on this and can guide, you know, these commissioners through that process, because obviously there is a disconnect here, and it will be helpful to have new voices in that process. I'd also, yeah.
I was going to say, and one of the things I just want to add, there may be some changes that need to be made to the bylaws, but there's nothing in the bylaws that says a new commissioner can't come forward with an idea for a different work group. And there's nothing in the bylaws that says specifically, you know, how work flows. I mean, there's some things, but, you know, and so maybe we also need to think about new leadership to some extent. If there's, you know, if we're having a hard time here, that may also be another thing for us to consider too with the bylaws. So. Shailene?
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to give commissioners a little bit of time to just kind of have part of this conversation. It's super important, but I wanted to, as we discussed before, open up a little bit to staff, and I'd like to make a couple of comments and suggestions if that's okay with everyone. I think the idea of having particular work groups for set work, i.e. the annual report. So it's potentially a great idea if we go into the following year, but there's a work group that's set up of more commissioners that have their hands on with staff as we go through the process. So we have a more diverse body and voices at the table as we kind of work that process. The annual report, staff started working on that actually late last year. And the first draft was available in February, and it has gone through several iterations since then. So having a working group might actually cut down the time that staff has been working on it, probably about 8 months, I think, is how long we've been working on this annual report. So I think that would really help us with our timelines when we're going through that kind of work. That's a nice suggestion. In addition, commissioners, you also have, while there is language in the bylaws with how commissioners and staff do interact through the supervisor chains, because we are, as you know, city employees, this is our 9 to 5, our bread and butter. I think in the ways that we can engage with each other, you do have options when you come to the work group meetings, when you come to the work group prep meetings, you have direct access to Nia Franco, who's our senior policy advisor who runs the work groups, right? You have Louisa there, sometimes myself is there, sometimes Brandy is there, Jesse, anyone on staff could be there at any point in time. So you have the direct contact with us where you can ask questions. And as I said in our last meeting, I will start navigating a little bit differently and being very honest and just upfront and transparent. If you ask me a question, I'm going to answer the question truthfully and just honestly of how I see it and what's going on. And also within the parameters of just within the profession. That aside, there's also an avenue where you can meet directly with kind of with me and the policy team. You know, Reverend Williams coined this last year lovingly as, you know, Thursday mornings with Shailene, where I have a block of 2 hours from 9 to 11 on my calendar, where I've allowed commissioners to kind of reach out and set up meetings if they wanted to talk about work. You can't direct work in these meetings. It's more like, what are you all working on? Here's a thing I was thinking about. Maybe I can give some feedback on something. We could take a look at a piece, something for you, report back out to the commission at large, or if we have the bandwidth to do it. And I think I can set some of those expectations as well in those conversations. But you do have some access points to staff where you can just have a conversation and ask questions, and we're happy to do so. And I think that's helpful because a lot of times these conversations, staff isn't as involved as I'd like us to be. And because it's time for you all to set the structure, set the pace, the tone, the platforms you take up, but also staff is behind the scenes doing all the work and the research. So I think it's really important that we work a little more collaboratively in these public and shared spaces so you kind of know what's going on. So I'm still working through how we can do that in a productive way so that all fully staffed 21 of you are also heard during the 2-hour block of time that you meet. So we're not also taking over that space, but also that since we're the ones doing the bulk of the work, we're also adding in, here's what's going on, as well as almost everyone on staff is a subject matter expert within their own particular field. So keeping that in mind. And one last point, and then I will turn it over to anyone else on staff who'd like to say something. I want us to remain very clear, very professional when we are talking about the work as it's put forth. I think we all know it comes from commissioners, but primarily comes from staff. So when we're speaking about the work, I want us to remain very, I'll say, level-headed and professional. We're speaking to the work that people have put forth with people of very, very educated group of folks who are subject matter experts, and it's embedded through usually a work group and the things and the way it's characterized or framed in this very public space. I think if we kind of step out of bounds, you'll hear a little bit more from me in that exact moment. So we are not making a mistake to call someone out for something that is untrue. And we can speak more on that in the specifics, I think, in other spaces and not today. But I just want to make that very clear, my stance moving forward as your policy director. Is anyone on staff want to say anything? I took up a lot of time, but I think I think commissioners were open to staff speaking a little bit today, if that's okay.
Yes, that's great.
So if anyone on staff wants to say anything, I think now is a really good time. Keep in mind that we're only meeting for another short period of time. I don't want to shorten anyone, but
We
just
have another item on our agenda, so.
and that as well. So just being aware and cognizant of time, team.
I do, can you all hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I do want to add something really quickly, if that's okay. I think, thank you, Shailene, for opening up. I think the only thing we can say as technical staff is to make sure we set the record straight from our point of view, from where we're standing. And I just think there were a few statements in this meeting and in the last meeting that aren't consistent with the way things pan out from the staff's perspective. So I think it's just important that we clarify that. Shailene already alluded to the timeline on the annual report. We did start working on that late last year, have been working on it since. There were also, not to bring back the letter over and over again, but the statement about there being structural and grammar issues with the letter, that is a little bit different from the feedback we got. The feedback was mostly focused on tone. Also, the feedback of the annual report, that the problem with the annual report is that it mostly mentions things that happened in 2021. That's also not super consistent with the feedback we've gotten. And then generally to say that there are issues with basic quality because the staff is new. Most of us have been here for a year or more. And then just going back to a statement from last week or last meeting that Nia sent an email in error That was also not exactly how things panned out from our point of view. So I just think it's very important to clarify that.
Are there any other staff that have a comment at this point or question? Okay, Brandy, do you want to introduce our lead for the next section? And I guess that would close out the work group process and conversation. I think that this was a really open and frank conversation. I think that we have identified that there are some ongoing issues, and welcome the commissioners that have ideas to step up and talk about, you know, ways to improve this as we move forward. I do want to make sure we have enough time for the next item, but if people would like this to be an ongoing conversation for the next commission meeting, we can do that. Oh, Dr. Pinto, you have a comment on this topic?
Yeah, I just one quick clarifying question. So as an action item from this discussion, am I understanding correctly that there's nothing in the bylaws that prohibit us from now on having the work groups present information that they would like the full commission to review, whether that's in a draft format or in a finalized format that they would like a vote on? There's nothing prohibiting that from occurring.
That is correct. The only thing that the bylaws prohibit directly is the work groups sending out their own letter without approval from the full commission. So that is the only thing that is prohibited under the bylaws. But so there's nothing that prohibits more draft work from coming to the commission for full conversation. I know that Reverend Walden has brought it up several times. Doing that level will probably require a 3-hour meeting. So if that is the type of work the commission would like to do, that will be something that will probably need to be looked at, is having enough time to have these conversations. But that is, you know, I don't know that that people seem like they're ready to make that decision right now. If somebody would like to make a motion in that direction, that would be fine. But
I think the other action item, sorry, just to close the loop on this, was that we would circulate the letter that has been talked about, but not everyone has actually reviewed, so that it can be reviewed and discussed at the next meeting. I felt like there was consensus around that. So that is an action item out of this too.
So the letter is going around and then the annual report, correct?
That's what I heard from the commission, that they would like to see current form.
All right, thank you, everybody. If there's not anything else to add to that conversation, then I'm going to open the floor up for Commissioner Wagner to lead an open discussion about public safety. It was a point of that was raised during our last meeting by Commissioner Dickerson. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Brandy. So yeah, I mean, it was brought up that you know, there's been some concerns about kind of the state of public safety right now in the city, and questions about, you know, what the city's response should be, perhaps what our response should be as a commission. And so this is just an open time for commissioners to kind of share what they're hearing from their communities on public safety. And I know we only have a certain amount of time, but you know, this is a really important conversation. And so just want to open the floor right now to our commission to share kind of what you're hearing, what you're seeing as it relates to public safety in Seattle.
So I'm going to go ahead and speak on this topic since it's one of the ones that I brought up. In my community, of course, we did a rally because of the fact that safety has became a bigger issue within the downtown corridor. We have been very careful as to the way that we phrase things because we don't want to impede on access to justice. What we're saying is that the things that we're hearing are between the city and SPD, that things can't get taken care of, or there's a, I don't know if it's a fear of taking care of it because of the backlash that may happen. But for employees that are working, in this downtown corridor, they don't feel safe. They don't, a lot of them, there's a lot of folks that are currently telecommuting as we're trying to bring people back. They don't want to come back because they have been accosted. They have been assaulted. We, just had that attempted rape over in the courthouse. So these are things that when we're making decisions, we need to remember these things as well as commissioners, because we have a duty to not only get things done as far as accountability, but there's also the accountability piece when it comes down to safety and security. And so we need to find that fine balance and not make that pendulum swing from one side just to the other side. We need to be very thoughtful in what we're doing as a commission because we represent the community as a whole.
Thanks, Suzette.
I'm not sure, Douglas, can you see who has their hand raised? So
Not through the participant list, but yeah, I'm seeing Reverend Walden. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Mothers Police Accountability had a press conference last month about the increase of violence in the community. And we had some mothers who have lost their children to violence to be part of that press conference. We think that people in the city need to do both. And I mean, we're concerned about Black Lives Matter when the police kill someone, and that's the reason why we do this other work. But the voices are silent when the mothers are crying and stuff like that. And so what we did, we called on the city to come up with a safety plan. I mean, what would that safety plan look like for all sectors of Seattle with the increase of violence and not enough officers out there? And so it's no major arrest in a crime. Well, there was going to be one, but I guess it was that was another incident of police shooting when they tried to execute the warrant. But really and truly, I mean, I think that the voices on the other side has not been heard, and I think that the commission actually never had a space for the other side of people who actually was not interested, who wanted to talk more about what was happening to them as a result of crime or as a result of escalating violence in the community. We gave space for other people last year, rightfully so, but we didn't do both and to talk to the other side. And I think that as a commission, both and in this city is absolutely necessary. We gave people last year lots of time, but we've never had a forum or anything for the people who experience violence on a daily basis in Seattle.
Thanks, Reverend Walden. And now I do see the participant list. Prachi?
Yeah, thank you, Douglas, and everyone who's provided their thoughts so far. From my perspective, I think we need to be really careful about the way in which we're thinking about safety and public safety in our communities. I think that approaching it from kind of a policing lens rather than a community support lens, it would be my preference. Meaning approaching it from a community support lens, right? One of the things that I think that we're seeing is that, for us, our goal and our role is to support communities, and we're seeing that they're not receiving the kinds of supports that they need to receive. And so, talking about public safety without talking about the fact that those are essential pieces of what it is that people need, I think is seeing only part of the picture. I also think that, I have concerns about the conflation of, kind of the incidents that have happened, and the way in which we talk about public safety and what needs to be done in order to ensure communities are safe. And I really do think that, there are ways in which those are politically utilized, in order to, for example, engage in action against, the communities that we see in downtown, who are impacted very, very heavily, not only by, violence, but also by the pandemic that we, of course, have all been going through, right? And so I really think it's very important for us to be careful about the way in which we talk about these issues, because there are people out there who are suffering a great deal. And I think we need to be solution oriented. And for me, those solutions are not to engage in more incarceration or more policing activity, as much as for us to come through to it through a community lens. And so thank you very much, everyone. But those are my thoughts.
Reverend Walden, do you have your hand up again, or is that an old hand?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I really like all the comments, but 81 mothers are crying in Seattle because their children have been killed between last year up until July, and then it's been some more shootings. And community response on that, I mean, there's groups who are working on that piece. And for us to be silent, the fact that the city, no one even has given any one of those mothers at least a condolence. I mean, for us to be silent on the fact that there's 81 mothers crying in Seattle because their children are not coming home, no matter what happened. I mean, we're not talking about what kind of life they were living, but I really and truly, we were missing that other opportunity. And I do agree with what Pachi is saying too, on that other end of the spectrum. But unless you had that lived experience as a mother, my son passed away, so I'm in that club. And so most people are not in that club. But there's something to be said about listening to the voices of the mothers who lost their children. I mean, not to say that we're coming up with a plan, I mean, anything like that, but there's a safety plan, and safety does not always have to mean just heavy law enforcement. I mean, it could be expanded on bereavement support. I mean, for the mothers. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen. Not to saying that we could be the one to do that, but I mean, if we don't come with compassion for the other side, then we're still creating a world that's not going to work for all people. Thanks. And I'm done. My hand down.
Do other folks have comments or thoughts about the public safety issues that you're seeing, or kind of your concerns related to public safety, or these thoughts about kind of what a public safety plan or response could look like? Yeah, Officer Mullen.
So I guess I need to get with Pashi to help me understand what she means about being cautious about the way we talk about public safety, so I could understand. I don't mean in disrespect, but I think one of the ways that we need to talk about it is police. We've lost a lot of police officers in the last year or so, and it is directly impacting public safety. The threat of defunding, the threat of losing 100 officers has caused us to lose more than 300 officers. Every day that I go to roll call, I wonder who's going to be there to back me up because of the threat of defunding or the threat of 100 officers being laid off. And it is not comforting to find out that you're one of two officers to be able to handle a whole segment or sector of this city. Now, when I talk about police presence, that's different from the police work that has been done in the past. We had a hot spot on Beacon Hill just this week, which all I did was go up there and be a presence, walk around and start talking to people and calming things down, because we'd had several robberies and we'd had a stabbing. And my squad was getting overrun. So we need to teach officers how to have an officer presence without putting their hands on people, without having to take a taser out, without having to take their gun out, to be able to calm an area. Rainier Beach is hot right now because we had a shooting. People are angry. I got out of the MP. I drive the MP truck now, the mobile precinct. And I got out at the memorial down there at Jack in the Box in Rainier Beach, and people are angry at me. Why? Because no cops have come down there to talk to those people about what's going on how they feel, or what happened. Somebody says, hey, one of the issues was that the body was there for 4 hours. Well, somebody needed to explain to them why. And that's when ambushes and officers getting jumped, or officers having problems, or having arguments, or getting into difficulties. That's where it happens. That's how it happens. So the less officers we have, the more we're going to have problems in the city. There's no way to talk about it. There's no way to candy coat it. If we continue on this, it is police reform that we're doing, not police hate. It's police reform. So let's think about it that way. And I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, Officer Mullins. Felicia?
Thank you, Douglas. I just wanted to add that I think that just as I kind of called out in my plan without the details to taking up the time in the meeting, Mother Walden had been talking for some time about a rapid response team, and I know it to be very super important. And as you speak about the mothers that are out here crying, those mothers are really out here crying. I talked to several of them just because of my personal relationships with them, and the need and the hurt and the pain and the misinformation or no information, or just being able to navigate the process of losing someone is a complete and total missed opportunity for, and I'm not going to just put it on the police department because the detectives got their job, but I think that this is a place where, as a commission, caring and engaging with the community is a great place where we can really step in, fill the gap, and start some of the process of healing our community members. I could go on story after story, just as Mother was talking about, with the hurt and the pain and the tears. And on the flip side of the officers, that they get the brunt of it, and I'm not trying to uphold for SPD, but I'm just saying they do get the brunt of it because they are short-staffed, and then the detectives have to do their job when they're at the scene. They don't have time to hold that mom and pat her in the back and tell her everything is going to be okay. But there are mechanisms, and there are ways that we could deploy to help alleviate some of this ongoing pain and suffering out here with, for our officers and for our community. That's just my say. Thank you.
Thanks, Felicia. And is that like a function that you think could be pursued through the community engagement work group, or through kind of your work, that kind of outreach and conversation about the impacts that people are experiencing and concerns about public safety.
Absolutely. I truly feel like it's a perfect place for the community engagement work group. But as a staff person, but I know that there are people on this call right here that are passionate as well about the same topic. So that's why I'm really hoping that we'll get the like Catherine has the behavioral health pieces of our work groups, and but I'm really hoping that we can really get a robust group of people to work on this community engagement piece and be a presence and be a resource and be a conduit for the community. Yes, Douglas.
Thank you. That sounds great. And Reverend Walden has her hand up, and then we might need to wrap up.
I wanted to call on Joseph because Joseph was working with Roxana when Roxana was trying to put up a rapid response after the untimely death of Mr. Fadoga. And forgive me, Joseph, if I'm not calling his name right. But I know that you and Roxana was working on something that was culturally appropriate for that community. And I just want you to speak on that because you work with Roxana, if Joseph is still here.
Joseph, are you on the line still?
We may have
Okay, I'm not hearing him.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that was it's Joseph. That was like a rapid response that was put together for that Samoan community as a result because of the cultural differences, and wanted to highlight the culture. And Roxana and Joseph worked on that to be able to go to the Samoan community to talk to them. Of course, when you've lost a child, you've lost a child. If whether it's on one side of the equation, on the other side of the equation, the mother, the grief for the family is still the same. And so maybe at another time, Joseph could get with you and talk about and get with also Felicia, Ms. Cross, to talk about what was done. And I know it was a framework for that. I don't know, and I do know that they met with that community, and it probably would be somewhere in the minutes or someplace that they met, and it was a framework for that. Just something, and then maybe Joseph can maybe share that information with Ms. Cross about how that came about. But if you got a rapid response, the city of Seattle needs a rapid response, and I've talked to them more than once about that. I mean, in fact, we did the rapid response after the non-indictment, and also after Ferguson Mothers for Police Accountability, we did a rapid response for the whole city. So, but the city does need a rapid response. But also, I think there's a framework for this to happen that could be culturally relevant, and also take in consideration that sometimes it's a community member that mother is crying, but also it's another member of the community that the police. I mean, because you have the victims of police violence also still grieving. So I just think this is a good opportunity to think about how to craft something that will work in either case, whatever the scenario is. Thank you, and I'm really done now, for real.
Thank you. And I know we're like running up against time, so I'll hand it back to co-chairs or Brandy. But thank you everyone for sharing kind of what you're hearing, what you're experiencing. This is a really important issue, and I think it would be an appropriate place for as one issue that the community engagement team could dig into. And as we're talking about public safety, I mean, obviously thinking about both police accountability and policing are a part of that conversation. And so figuring out kind of what's our position on a rapid response option and kind of a comprehensive plan for public safety, I think would be interesting.
Great, thank you so much, Douglas. Really appreciate it. And I just want to say, I want to thank everyone, staff, commissioners, everyone who's been part of such the robust discussion today. There's a lot to think about. Next steps, how we approach our work, restructure, the whole thing. a lot on the table, and I will certainly myself take a lot of time to really think deeply about some of the concerns that were raised here and try to figure out what the next steps are for a best approach. Erin?
Thank you, Lauren. I want to echo your comments and really appreciate that we've had a very robust conversation with a lot of participation, especially from commissioners that we don't hear from too often. So I want to acknowledge that and the bravery involved with, having this level of a conversation in a public meeting, and appreciate that. And with that, I will turn it over to Brandy to close us out.
There's not too much more that I can say besides I just appreciate everybody's candor and honesty. I appreciate the commission so much, and we have some work to do, and that's understandable. I hope everybody has an amazing rest of their day and a continued great week, and stay encouraged. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brandy.
Record.